at a lot of pots, and as long as he doesn't fall against another big hand, that could be to his advantage. But at some stage, you've got to think, well, I'd love to be in the final. I'm just on the bubble, so to speak.
Yeah.
Does that change the equation? Well, this slow Peter Gialis down. He would have raised beforehand, but he's taken a beating. And all of a sudden, he's put the brakes on.
Yeah, I mean, from the Gialis' point of view, you know, he's thinking, he could legitimately be thinking, if I just sit tight for a while, so two of these three maniacs are going to get wrapped up in a pot.
They're all thinking the same things. Which player's not thinking, if I sit tight, I could be in the final?
I mean, it has to creep into your head, doesn't it?
It would be if I was there, I know that.
Clayton using the ace-queen that time to bludgeoning advantage, taking the pot.
My prediction. Here's my prediction. I might get one thing right. By the time, when the fourth player goes out, Yanni Sointula is over 300,000.
That's bold.
Do you think that's bold?
It's a bold prediction, yes. We'll see.
Never been right yet.
I have to admit, I think that there's a bunch of great... I have to admit, I love Pyra's game right now because it's just so much raw talent, and I just can't see him not making it to the final table, but he could easily just blow out, couldn't he?
Yes, he could.
Clayton's very steady. You have to figure Clayton's the best bet for the final table right now. There's no way he's gone off the rails.
No, I think he's very, very sensible and will be there. Give himself every chance. And it's about giving yourself a chance, giving yourself an opportunity to be in the right place. Obviously, there's certain hands that come up against each other you can't get out of and get away from. That's always a possibility. But he was very good in his heat. In the early part of the game, he didn't get too many good cards, and he was very patient then.
So this game slowly rising to a boiling point, and four-handed, there's no way to avoid the barrage of decisions.
And so many difficult decisions to make that you wouldn't necessarily have to make in other circumstances. Even if the situation was that only one player went through to the final, it would clarify the matter somewhat. You'd know how to play. It would be a usual scenario for you to have played. You have to win chips, you've got to get going. But this added X factor, the worry of thinking that I could be there if I play passively, nagging at the back of your mind. But knowing full well that if you play passively and you enter the final with less chips, where are you going to be in the final? What a
yeah,
spinning around in your head.
Dave Clayton and Yanni really pointed it out very succinctly in their, when we talked to them before this heat, you know, that there are obviously some people who are thinking, next guy goes out, I get 10,000, and some people who are thinking, I want 125,000 or nothing. So it's really what you're...
And he was building up there for a raise and finally bottled it. Or rather decided against it is probably a nicer way to put it. Sointula now in the small blind calls.
It's not often the 9-deuce looks so good before the flop, but right now it does. Clayton with the 8 high.
Well, he's hit 4 hearts. And
6,000.
that's the end of this pot. Or is it? I don't think Clayton's the type of player that just start getting busy. Certainly not against Sointula.
So you can look at those cards as many times as you want. There's still going to be an 8 and a 3 in the pocket.
8 and 3.
I mean, one thing about Sointula, as opposed to these other 3 players, is that he probably has had the most experience in this no-limit hold'em game four-handed. He plays a lot of a short-handed no-limit hold'em on the internet, hours and hours, whereas Clayton will probably be more used to playing in a full game. as will Peter and Andy. So you wonder if that's going to have some kind of bearing.
Yes, I mean, I go back to my other point. The only difference is, of course, that this position of 3 players going through to the final, which does add even a problem for Sointula, I suppose.
It is. It's just that extra thing to think about it.
Probably the best way to play is probably to not think about it. Just play.
Raised. 12,000 total.
This is the first real hand before the flop Yanni's picked up, I think, besides the ace-king.
Frustration on the Pyra there.
No one to play with? There's always PartyPoker.com.
There was a situation, I think, last week with Barry Hearn and Ian Fraser, where Barry's moved all in on Ian's big blind, and Ian's folded an ace-8, and he knew he had the best hand, but still, with 4 players left, did not want to gamble, and it really became a situation of moving those chips in first is so powerful. Even if Barry had shown Ian that he had had the worst hand, I don't think Ian would have called, because the risk of getting knocked out was that was just a bad thing.
Knowing that is probably why Yanni Sointula moved all in before
Pass.
on his opponent.
Raise.
Clayton getting busy with those undesirable cards in a
12 total.
large-handed table, but on the button,
Pass.
a different story.
Do you think he's making it his aim to pick on Peter Jallis's big blind, knowing that Peter is the least likely to call before the flop? Or the most vulnerable, anyway.
I think Peter Jallis at the moment is just feeling the heat just a fraction. There's no real need to panic, but he's just feeling the heat a bit. He's just got to regroup. He's nowhere near out of it. A double up helps him out no end, but he's been raising big and losing recently.
Well, it does help him, but 62,000, Peter has just reached that point where a double up would still not get him even to the other big stacks. Although it would flip-flop him with somebody, wouldn't it? I mean, where is Peter's line in the sand, do you think, chip-wise? Is it 40,000? Is it 30,000? Interesting to see.
12 mil. 16 total.
I think when he looks around the table and sees the size of the pile of some of the players, it must be quite intimidating. He's just got to do the maths himself. One thing's for certain, nobody will want to double him up. So they'll have to have a big hand if should he start going all in from now on in. But it really isn't time to panic with the blinds.
This game all about stealing from the button right now. Jack 4 for Andy Pyra, Jack 5 the hand before for Clayton. Seems like there's no end to getting that first raise in.
Okay, so Jallis on the button. This is the normal place to perhaps raise and try and steal the blinds. And of course Andy Pyra one away from the button. There's only 4 of them.
Pass.
And that's quite a passive play.
Pass.
An ace with 8 cards out.
12,000 total.
Sointula takes over as the aggressor from perhaps Pyra's put down.
Clayton has not picked up a hand yet to Yanni's big raises, but I think he's showing by his silence that he's not happy about being bullied around in this fashion, or at least that's the way he perceives it.
It'd be nice to have known what was going through his mind there for a split second. I wondered if he considered the possibility of re-raising. You know, it's been such an excitable start to this this particular semi-final. It's easy to get carried away in that excitement and start trying to make moves. You've got to be so much in control of your own emotions.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk endlessly about the extra strategy